Quote, "We're sorry to say Half-Life Alyx won't be shown at the Game Awards tonight. The team is hard at work on the game, and we're excited to show you more in the new year as we approach the March release." It was announced on the day the trailer dropped that Half-Life Alyx would be presented during the Game Awards. And we did not find out that it wouldn't be until only a few hours before the awards ceremony went live. Why exactly did this happen? It's fairly simple, and it boils down to Boneworks and Locomotion. To sum up, Boneworks released 2 days ago. For those unaware, it's a fully physical virtual reality first-person shooter heavily inspired by the Half-Life franchise and heavily inspiring Half-Life Alyx. This game went viral before its release on the Node YouTube channel in videos related to VR gun implementations that Stress Level Zero had been working on for a long time. Boneworks championed the idea of everything being as realistic as possible through everything being physical. Half-Life Alyx, for the longest time, did not prioritize the physicality of the world over top of its own gameplay. And like I said, Boneworks inspired Valve to add in at least somewhat of a physics engine. Nothing like Boneworks has been doing, but something. And as I've said in videos in the past, some of the most anticipated portions of the things that we've seen have been directly inspired by Boneworks. So why is Valve not showing the game off when they promised that they would? Pretty much everybody expected the Game Awards showcase to be gameplay. We got ourselves a story trailer, now it's time to see what the game can actually be, and according to my sources, they were very much getting the build ready for some kind of presentation, updating the game at least 10 times in the last week. So why did they pull the plug? Because they were going to be showing teleport-only gameplay. Smooth locomotion, or essentially using the VR joystick to move the player around as if it was a normal first-person shooter, isn't implemented in a way that can be shown off to the public yet. In the current public-facing build, as far as I am aware, the smooth locomotion system is only accessible through a console command, and even then, it barely works. So without a doubt, the gameplay that they would have been showing off, and essentially everything that Jeff Keighley has played up until this point, is teleport only. Now, for some people, that might not seem like that big of a deal, but you have to remember Boneworks is in everybody's minds right now. It's a long game. So, if in the middle of all of our playthroughs of Boneworks, we see something akin to this, instead of, say, something like this, then obviously a lot of people are going to be upset with what Valve is creating, even though the gameplay that they would have been showing off would not be representative of the final product. Valve has already promised both smooth locomotion and seated gameplay, two features that they never discussed through development and only added, once again, because of Boneworks. But why would this happen? Why exactly would Valve pull the plug at the last minute? And also, why would Valve think that showing off teleport-only gameplay is the best way to represent their games? Well, unfortunately, given the incredibly opaque nature of these circumstances, the public is running wild with speculative theories on exactly what happened. And unfortunately, because of the lack of transparency in the communication and exactly why Valve pulled the plug, there are people that already feel burned. If they advertised a game that costs nearly $1,000 to play in the best possible way, and they're not even comfortable showing it shortly after, well, then was that money well spent? spent. It was, because Valve's private face is incredibly simplistic. They only pulled the plug because of the locomotion methods not being fully implemented yet. But once again, why did they even think that showing a teleport-only gameplay snippet of the most anticipated VR game in the world was okay? Well, it boils down to what I call the Valve bubble. A couple videos ago, I discussed how Valve was changing for the positive, and it's true. Their communication methods have absolutely changed for the better overnight. But Valve's lack of communication is not the only problem that they have. There is another, some would argue much bigger problem based around ego. There is a group of people at Valve that have been there for a very long time, and Valve has an infinite money fountain and has had this infinite money fountain for well over a decade. Staying at a company that has infinite money and developing things that almost never get shown to the public for a decade will cause a lot of people's perspectives to be skewed. I have said many times that there are a lot of people inside of Valve that are out of touch with the actual games industry, and this is a perfect example of that. I call it the Valve cycle, and it went like this. A group of excited developers would create something and get somewhat far on the prototype. More people would join on that prototype through the excitement, and it would begin to build. However, an employee that has been at the company for a long time will take one look at this prototype and say that it won't work. That will cause the project to fall apart due to how employee evaluations work, and then all of those things will then be leaked out into the public to be able to gather data on. That data will inspire another group of people to prototype a game, and more people will get excited and work on it for a few months or a year until a high-up employee tells them that it won't work. So they will dissolve the project because of Valve's stacked ranking and how employee evaluations work, and they'll just leak out some of the bits that they worked on in order to be able to collect data. A group of other developers will then look at that data and get inspired to, you get what I'm saying. It's because of this constant cycle of creating and never releasing that Valve's ideas on what the community wants are not representative of what the community actually wants. You have to remember, these are the people that thought Artifact in its current state was a good idea to ship, and they also thought that Half-Life Alyx would not have been that well received. Showing off what is now known as the most anticipated virtual reality game using an antiquated teleportation system does make a little more sense given the context. However, I'm sure some of you are asking, how difficult really is it to implement a smooth locomotion system if literally every major game releasing today, give or take a few, includes smooth locomotion in some regard? It is easy. In fact, Valve has so much pull within the indie developer community that they could literally ask anyone to do it for them. Why didn't they? Well, unfortunately, that just boils down to laziness. Gabe Newell once said, quote, "We can't eat marshmallows all the time." That essentially means that even though Valve is an excellent place to work and an excellent place to do the things you love, it can't always be everything you want to do. Sometimes people need to buckle down and do some work that might not be the most entertaining, such as cleaning up their development repository or organizing their engine code. However, because it's Valve, and because there are a lot of people that don't find value in those kind of things, it almost never gets done. One of my biggest dreams in my professional career so far is to create a documentary series on the cut content of Valve, but doing it legitimately with access to some or all of Valve's old development files. I've asked many times to do this, and the few times I have received responses, it usually goes, well, we don't know where all the files are, and the files that we do have are very unorganized, so we don't know what we could share in the first place. And this is when talking about files related to Half-Life 1. The silent mantra of, no, it's okay, someone else will do it, is very much alive at Valve, and is likely the reason why we did not see the game at the Game Awards. They pulled the plug at the very last minute. They were preparing the build to be shown today. And also, Boneworks has been known about for a long, and Valve has had access to the game since December of 2018. Boneworks has only ever had smooth locomotion. They knew that this was something looming in the distance. They also knew that they were wanting to show the game off at the Game Awards on November 22nd. it would be totally possible for a group of developers at Valve to get a decent smooth locomotion system working in the game between the days of November 22nd and December 12th. That is not unheard of. That would be totally possible given Valve's resources, yet they didn't do it because they didn't think it was important, and then at the last minute realized how bad of a look it would have been and didn't do anything about it but pull the plug. What's interesting to me is that Casey is still at the Game Awards. Shortly after Valve tweeted that Half-Life Alyx would not be shown at the Game Awards, which by the way is a better step than just not saying it at all and leaving us all disappointed, Casey from Valve did say that she was already at the Game Awards. She later stated that this was done because Valve wanted at least one representative to be able to collect an award for Valve if CSGO or Dota 2 were to win an esports award. The problem is, it doesn't make any sense. Valve was preparing this build today, and she traveled to the Game Awards by herself to collect awards for games that she has nothing to do with. We felt very strongly in sending someone, me in this instance, no matter what. As a team and as a company, we really value the community, and even without a giant announcement, we're excited to be part of the celebration of games. The problem is that statement would only hold true if they had made this delay a while ago. They did not. They were planning on doing this a few hours ago. They pulled the plug 3 hours until the show. This is a mess, and it's incredibly representative of some of the problems that still exist within Valve that hopefully one day we will see a solution to. However, unlike the communication problem, which literally can be fixed by opening some Twitter accounts, the Valve bubble issue is such a deeper problem that it may never be fixed. We'll just have to see.